Oh, baby. Oh, we did it.
Okay, quick shot, okay? First part.
It's been 2 weeks since I gave birth. Bad news is I wasn't able to film the actual birth. I do have some small clips which I'll add in. So I just got to the hospital. My support team couldn't come back because they're only allowing one person. The nurses had to come in and get me poked and prodded and all hooked up to the machines, and the fetal monitor they had to keep on and coming in and checking every hour, and every hour I would wake up because it would fall out of place. They'd have to be situated, and so every hour I was waking up. Just woke up 1 centimeter. I will have my baby today. Started Cervidil last night. Slept about 4 hours. They're gonna start Pitocin possibly around 10, depending on where I'm at. Having mild contractions. Mostly it's just a lot of pressure. It worked out really nice because I just got into my zone, my headspace, and just, all I did was sleep and relax, and I think having somebody here would have just made it distracting for me when there was nothing really going on and all I needed to do was just chill out and relax. So moving back into the story, I told the nurse, I said, oh my goodness, this is the first time they've been and stayed consistent, and I'm really excited because when they were coming on, I just was like, oh yes, maybe I'll go into my own labor and I won't need Pitocin. And so I was all excited, and the nurse said, oh, well, we'll know if it's real labor when you're no longer excited about the contractions. At 10 o'clock, they started to get a little bit more intense, and she called the doctor and she said, well, let's let the doctor know that you're dilated about 1 to 2 centimeters and see if he wants you to go on Pitocin. And I told her, I said, I really don't want to go on Pitocin. I have a strong feeling that I am going to go into my own spontaneous labor here. I don't want to do Pitocin. I don't want to do it. And so she came back and she said, well, the doctor wants to start you on Pitocin. And I was like, ugh. She said, well, we'll start you off on the lowest dose, which is 2, I don't know what the unit is, micrograms. I guess it's pretty low. I've heard women going up to 20. I believe my success in this labor, which this labor went exactly how I wanted, how I dreamed it would go. But it started here because I told myself, I'm not gonna let this intimidate me or make me believe that I can't do this without an epidural. So I told myself that. I said, I'm just gonna pretend that I am having no Pitocin, and I'm gonna pretend that these are completely natural. So my husband got there, and he just hanging out talking with me all day. We didn't have the TV on, but I would put the book down and then I would just breathe through my contractions. And another thing that I did that I think helped me was I sat up as much as I could, because when I was sitting up, I could feel the pressure. I had to kind of embrace that feeling of the baby pushing down and relax, because I could feel that the more I kind of relaxed those muscles and let the baby sink down, I knew it was gonna keep progressing my labor. And then I would say around 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock it got to the point where I definitely could not read anymore and I needed help. I believe at 2 o'clock I was around 4 centimeters, and that's where it started to get real. So they didn't increase the Pitocin. The nurse came in and said, no, you're progressing really well, we'll just leave it as it is. And what I remember from this point on, and for the next 2 to 3 hours, was I remember getting to that point of pain that I did in my first pregnancy where I did get the epidural. And I remember that moment where I told myself, this is where I got the epidural last time. This is where the pain for me last time was insurmountable, and I was freaking out. And that moment for me right there was kind of pivotal because my husband's like, well, do you want it now? And I'm like, no, I could do this. What worked for me for a while in terms of the different positions was, I know the hardest position is to lay on your back. So I was like, I'm gonna try to lay on my back as much as I can. I put the bed back. I grabbed onto the side of the bed. I tried to visualize myself rowing down a river. I had some other happy places that I would try visualizing. I would tell myself positive affirmations, and most importantly, I practiced my breathing. And the breathing technique that worked for me was in 4, out 6. Pretty basic. That worked for me the whole time. I can't say the whole time. That worked for me up until about maybe 4 p.m. After laying in the bed, it got to a point where I definitely was like, this is too painful. I can't lay down anymore. So the nurse came in and I told her, I said, I can't lay down. It hurts too bad. She was great. If it wasn't for her helping me figure out what to do next, I don't know if I would have been able to do this without an epidural. She showed me a position that helped me tremendously that I probably wouldn't have known about. The small peanut ball position. Okay. In the middle of the peanut ball, obviously there's a little indent. Elevated the bed so that I was able to put my hands on it like this. And I sat in that position for almost an hour through the contractions as they got, to the most pain I've ever felt at this point. It again it always gets to a point where you feel like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I can't, it's too much, I can't do it. And I would tell her every time I got to that point, and then she would help to give me something else to do. So then she grabbed my hips and she helped me sway back and forth on the peanut ball. She would bring new heat packs out and hold them. She would hold them on me like this, one in the front, one in the back, and then she would rock with me, and then she would say, let's rock, just rock, it's almost over, it's almost over. And she did that with me a few times, but then obviously, she was busy and there were times she wasn't there. But after doing that with me for a few times, and when I was by myself, I was able to imagine her there with me and do it on my own. And that's how I did it. So that lasted, like I said, I did that for about an hour. So maybe we're at 3 p.m. now. I don't know how dilated I am at this point. But let's see. Then got to a point where I couldn't do that anymore because it was too painful. Where I was like, I can't sit, I can't lay down, so I'm just gonna randomly walk around. So then I went into the bathroom for a couple minutes and I tried to hang on the railing that was in there. I kept having to go to the bathroom, and every time I did, I was starting to bleed. And she said, nope, that's good, that's good. That means we're progressing nicely in terms of your cervix. I would come back out, I would have to just start standing. So I put the bed up, I elevated as much as I could, even more. And I stood with my hands on the bed for about an hour and alternating between standing and sitting on the peanut ball again. And even when I was standing, I would think, no, there's nothing I can do that is gonna make this pain better. And she would come in and she would say, trust me, try sitting on the peanut ball again, it will help. And I was like, no, there's no way I'm gonna be able to do that. But then once I did sit on the peanut ball again, it actually would help. The pain would go down. Pain, it was getting so bad that my breathing techniques weren't working anymore. Visualization went out the window. It was just starting to feel like it was getting out of control. Okay, must have been about 4:15. She checked me and she said, I think you're about 8 centimeters. I'm calling the doctor. And then she was gone. And then I was like, holy shit, I am 8 centimeters. But I couldn't really think too much at this point anymore. I was just trying to make it through. I was just in survival mode. I don't know how else to put it. There's no thinking. It's just survival mode. I'm just trying to survive. And that's another thing I started telling myself during the contractions. I would tell myself, I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm not dying. And if I'm living, I can make it through this. Doctor came in. He checked me. He said, you're 8 to 9 centimeters. You're not quite effaced, almost. And I was beginning to get to the point where I didn't think I could do it anymore. And she comes in and she says, Tiffany, I just want to let you know that this is probably the last point that you can get the epidural, because we have to call in the doctor. He was somewhere else, whatever doctor comes in to do the epidurals. They would have to call him in. By the time he got there, it, would be too late. So she's like, think about if you want the epidural, because if you do, and she wasn't trying to sway me either way, but one thing she did say that made me feel a little bit conflicted was she said, if you do, it's gonna feel a lot more in control. If you don't, she said, if you don't, the doctor's gonna break your water and it's going to get really intense. And I'm in an area of unknown territory, and it's already to the point where I feel like it's overwhelming, where I can't handle it. And if she's telling me it's going to get a lot more intense, obviously I'm feeling like I'm not going to be able to do it. Fortunately for me, the pain was already so bad at this point that I couldn't even really think logically or rationally to convince myself of anything. And this is the point where I'm glad I had it so far in my mind that I wanted to have a natural birth, because if I hadn't committed mentally to that so much, I would have just got it. But I couldn't say yes or no. I just put my head down and I just shook my head, and I couldn't think. I just couldn't think. My mind, it was gone, and I was just in my body, and I could absolutely not make a decision. I don't know, it's really hard to explain. Thank God my husband was there. As he said, she wanted to have a natural birth, and he told the nurse that. So this transition phase that people talk about is the real deal, and what I'm saying is that from 8 to 9 centimeters was the worst of it. It was worse than actually pushing the baby out, okay? Yeah, after that was when the pain was the worst. This looked like was me standing, my legs quivering, blood, me putting a comb in my mouth and clenching down as hard as I could, starting to yell through every contraction because I had lost control of myself at this point. It was like, I don't know if this is actually the ring of fire, because I always thought the ring of fire was when the baby's actually coming out, but for me it was a burning, and it was not quite, the baby's head wasn't out yet, but I could feel exactly where the baby's head was. I could feel it was like coming through, obviously, a really tight space within me. Like if the bottom of me, if out was here, it would be like right before that, almost like the baby's head was like breaking through the inside of me still, not breaking through the outside of me. And the way that felt was an extreme burning that wouldn't go away. So the contraction would hit, and then after the contraction, the burning persisted, and it was like a burning, like on fire. And when I felt that it didn't go away, I told the nurse, it's not going away, it's not stopping. And she's like, I know, honey, I know, it'll be done soon. And I was like, I can't. And then I felt like I was gonna pass out. And since I was standing, they were like, oh, we need to get her on the bed, because we can't have her passing out and hurting herself. Got me up under the bed. At this point, I'm on all fours.
You've got it. All right. Okay.
He felt me one more time, and he said, she's completely effaced, 10 centimeters, we're ready to push. I was like, okay. I put my head in the pillow. I couldn't find my comb. I had been holding on to my comb with my fingers for pain deflection. And then when we got to about, like that 8 to 9 centimeters, the comb went in my mouth, and I was clenching down the comb, which they say not to do apparently, but this is like all this stuff you're supposed to do and not supposed to do, but it's like, it got to the point where it was so out of control. I'm like, I don't effing care what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm doing what I have to do right now. The comb went in my mouth, and I clenched down on it, because that's the only thing. I just had to clench down on something. Like women say they have to push. I just felt like I had to clench down with something in my mouth. I couldn't find my comb, and so I went like this with my hair. I was like, only it was all my hair. It was all my hair. It was like this. I went, and then put my face in the pillow with my butt in the air, and I heard them saying, "We're gonna push at the next contraction." I was like, "Oh my God, it's happening." And at this point, it started to occur to me that it's time to have this baby. And I got this feeling where I was not as scared anymore because I had made it through that pain of the 8 to 9 centimeters. And it felt now that in between contractions, I was getting a break again. So for the next 15 minutes, I'm not gonna say the pain got better, but I was getting a break. So the contractions were still just as painful themselves, but I wasn't feeling that same burning feeling anymore. When you feel pain that extreme, any lesser pain, it's like nothing in comparison. So I started to feel like I can do this. And I started to feel not afraid anymore. I pushed with everything I had, and it hurt, but it felt good at the same time because I was getting this dang thing out of me. I pushed, and it was about 3 contractions, and baby was out in 3 contractions. When the baby came out, I definitely obviously felt a tearing, but it wasn't as bad as the burning. I didn't hear anybody say the head is out, but I could feel that the head was out. With the next contraction, the body came out, and I could actually feel the body come out because I could feel the twisting. And then the greatest feeling in the world was that relief of that baby slipping out, and I can breathe. At that moment, I was like in such shock that I just laid there. Well, I didn't lay there, I was still on all fours. I could hear all this chatting and talking, but in my head I was just like blank. I was just thinking like, it's over, thank God. I heard the baby start crying. I heard my husband say, "It's a boy." And then I could hear the nurses bringing the baby over to weigh it. And then there was this weird feeling of the umbilical cord is still hanging out of the back of me. And I'm like, well, that feels kind of weird. And then they finally put me over on my back. And it seemed like forever after that point of people up in me, doing stuff, pushing. And then the doctor was sewing me up. I had 2nd-degree tears. And I still don't have the baby. Where's the baby? I'm just laying there. I'm in just like a state of shock, I think, at this point. I'm just not caring, and this is different than how I thought it would be. So I was under the impression that when you had a baby naturally with no pain, like pain medication, that you would get all these wonderful hormones and just feel so amazing. And to be honest though, I did not feel amazing at all. I felt indifferent, numb, I don't know how else to put it. Finally they brought the baby over, put the baby on me. This time I was sitting up so high that the baby's like way under me, and all I see is the top of his head, and I'm trying to look and I could see his face a little bit. Really hard to focus on bonding with the baby because the doctor was sewing me up. The good news is that I couldn't feel the doctor sewing me up. All of this stuff after having the baby was not nearly as painful or difficult as I had feared it would be. To include pushing out the placenta. The placenta, I did not even feel it. It was nothing. I'm telling you, it was nothing. Pushing out the placenta. I didn't even, he told me it was happening. I was like, oh, okay. Slight bit of discomfort when I felt a couple little pinpricks. It wasn't even as bad as when they poke you in the arm. A couple little pinpricks, and then I didn't feel anything after that. Even with the nurses pushing on my stomach and the horror stories I've heard over that, it didn't hurt. If anything, all of this was just annoying me because I just wanted to be with my baby, and I had all these people everywhere doing all this stuff to me. It wasn't until everybody left that I really started to enjoy my time, and focus on bonding with the baby. Baby pooped all over me. I was covered in poop, blood, amniotic fluid. Finally, after they had me all sewed up, I told the nurse, I said, can you please help me with this baby? I am covered in poop. And she took the baby. I said, I need to get in the shower. And this was probably now a good hour, so I totally forgot to mention, baby was born at 5:05, okay? But it was probably about an hour after that, so probably almost 6 o'clock now by the time I was like, okay, I need to get in the shower. I need to get in the shower. Oh, this was disgusting. So she's like, okay, I'll take your baby, I'll do all the weighing and all that stuff, and your husband's gonna help me out here, and then you get in the shower and do what you need to do. And I was like, oh, thank God, all I wanted to do was get in the shower. So this weird part is that I wasn't expecting was, when I went to stand up to go take a shower, I almost passed out. And this is when I felt all the flood of hormones on my body, because when I sat up, I got extremely cold, like I was like sitting in an ice box. My mouth started chattering like this. It was uncontrollable chomping of my teeth. I was like, I'm cold. And she's like, are you all right? I was like, and she's like, let me help you into the shower. So she had to put the baby down, help me into the shower. My husband's watching the baby in the thing. I get in the hot shower. Thank God the water was hot. And I end up staying in the shower for a good half hour. And I was like, I feel kind of bad, but I was so cold. And that it took a half hour and a hot shower for me to finally get to where I wasn't chattering and shivering. The bathroom was a murder scene. And I wouldn't stop too. Like every time, no matter where I went, I tried to wipe it up, and then there'd be blood all over again. I mean, there was blood on the wall. There was blood all over the toilet, the sink, blood. I don't even know how so much blood got everywhere. I remember the nurse did tell me after I had the baby, I remember she said, your bleeding is concerning me a little bit, so we're gonna increase your Pitocin. They increased the Pitocin and it slowed down, but I guess there was a point where I was bleeding more than normal. So I don't know if the blood is that bad for everybody. It wasn't as bad for me the first time. Things started getting better from there. And so, you know, to summarize with this birth, I would say that it went exactly and wonderfully just how I wanted, because I was able to have a baby without using the epidural. I was able to be strong and understand the experience of having a baby without an epidural. I was able to feel everything, and I still, when I look back, I think I can't believe that I did it, but I'm very proud of myself, and I wouldn't have changed anything. I wouldn't have changed anything at all. But here's the thing, if I were to ever have a baby again, I don't want to go through that ever again. That pain, I don't, not ever. And if I ever do get pregnant, which I probably won't, I would get that epidural again. I would encourage anybody to challenge yourself to have a natural birth, just to challenge your tolerance for pain and your strength, and if the opportunity allows, which for me it did. Last time it didn't, but this time the opportunity did present itself. And if you have the same opportunity, I would encourage you to give it a try. But obviously don't feel bad if you do end up getting the epidural. You know, and I could sit here and gloat and brag and stuff about how I did it, but to be honest, I don't think I could have done it without the nurse there to help me, and I don't think I could have done it if she had asked me probably earlier for the epidural. I couldn't tell you what I would have said. I think the reason, or part of the fact that she asked me so late to where I was beyond reasoning and I was beyond convincing myself, was also part of the reason I didn't get it. So that's all I have to say. I might make a follow-on video, discuss other issues and things with this birth, but that's my story, and thank you for hanging in there.